Hey, what's going on? You got Gerard?
Hey, how everybody doing today?
All good, man.
Collective. We here on Monday? We're doing a Monday night pop up.
Yeah,
We're doing a
Monday
lot of different
pop
shows
up.
for y'all now. We switching it up.
Got to get that schedule down,
Yes.
Pat. No, this is just a surprise show.
Right. Yeah, we just doing a pop up, but we got a guest we want to introduce. Roz, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, I'm Roz from the DMV Freedmen, but my opinions that I'm speaking tonight are my own. So please don't call us and say, "What's Roz talking about?" I'm from DC, DMV. We putting in a lot of work here, so looking forward to this podcast tonight.
Sure. This is Ernest. You guys already know me. Touching base from Lansing, Michigan, from Chicago. Big reparationist. Definitely a part of FAM, but the views that we express today, like Ross said, these are our personal opinions and views. And so please don't try to hold our organizations to that standard. Stead?
Yeah, we got Gerard back, so he can introduce himself. Just
hey, it's your boy.
Introduce yourself. This is a pop up show.
Right. It's your boy Adolph J. Rocky. 1/4 of the Freedmen's Collective. Today we're gonna just do a synopsis of this dissection of this movie. Again, these opinions are our own. Also, spoiler alert. If you don't want to know the plot of the movie, please tune out now. You know what I mean? So, because we will be discussing that. So I hand it off to you, Stead. Do our housekeeping. We do that already about like, share, subscribe.
No, we didn't. So please like, share, and subscribe. Our normal shows are every other Tuesday. So we had one last Tuesday. We had one last Monday for the pre-election. We had the city elections, and we had one for election day. So we did post-election, and so we won't have one tomorrow because we do it every other Tuesday. But next Tuesday we'll have a show. This is a pop-up. If we have anything else to pop up and talk about, we'll be there. But this was kind of a brother Gerard had this idea. He wanted to talk about this movie, asked us to watch it, and kind of give our take about what we thought about it. So please like, share, and subscribe it. If you like the movie, share in the comments your opinion. If you disagree with our opinion, you probably will. Chances are you probably will disagree with us, but share your opinions in the comments because
are we gonna drop that link? We're gonna drop that link, right? We can bring people up if they really want to vote and voice their opinion. We like our opinions to be challenged.
Yeah, I got the StreamYard link I'm gonna put in the chat. And so if you want to share your opinion, you want to push back on anything we're saying, you can hit that link. We'll add you into the queue or add you into the stream. Try to be respectful. I mean, speak your mind. Try to be respectful. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I like free speech. So, don't be trying to be personal attacking nobody, but share your opinion.
No ad hominem attacks, y'all. But we got thick skin here. Hopefully y'all do too.
Right. But I'll let whoever want to take it away, Gerard, you want to take it away since this is kind of your big idea. I'll let you kind of take the lead with this. I mean, this is a great idea. It's a great idea. I probably would have never seen the movie personally.
Right.
But I appreciate you put me on to it because I think it's important for us to just to dissect.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll begin off. So the name of the movie is The Harder They Fall. It's basically it's a Western, right? Set in, I want to say it was the late 1800s. I believe it was like 1899, early 20th century, something along those lines. I can't, but it's definitely, post-Reconstruction era, right? I don't have all the demographics of the movie. Maybe somebody might want to cover all the demographics, but ultimately, it's a revenge story tale. In the likes of the good, the bad, and the ugly, a fistful of dollars. Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, right? You know what I mean? It's in that tradition. More so, it's in the spaghetti western genre of westerns, right? It's not a classic western. It's definitely the type that was done, in the 70s or what have you, of that type, and it takes a lot of visual and verbal cues from that type of movie or what have you, or genre of movies. So the movie just premiered on Wednesday, November 3rd on Netflix. Yeah, I think it actually had been in theaters prior to then. I saw the trailer several months ago, and I was really excited based on the trailer. From what I saw, it looked really good. Love to see, you know what I'm saying? It deals with the black cowboys, black people being in the West, because we were very influential and very present in the West, which doesn't get told, that often in Westerns outside of, we have our classics like Posse, Mario Van Peebles' Posse. That was a classic film of that era. But, for the most part, blacks in Westerns have been really, overlooked, where someone, I believe, Ross, I think it was Nirvana, had posted, I didn't even know until recently, like the last couple of days ago, actually cowboys, that term was actually referred to freedmen slaves. That's where the term cowboy was actually a derogative, because the slaves that came out to the West to make their money out in the West, and they were so good at horticulture and
ranch hands and stuff like that.
Husbandry, right? They could handle the animals way better than any of the other the white settlers that came out to the West, right? So they refer to, it's the word boy, right? You know what I mean? Oh, those are cowboys versus cowmen, right? Or steermen or something like that, right?
Which is a term.
Yeah,
cowman is a term.
Right.
Like you said, steermen, those are terms.
Right.
Cattleman or cattleman,
Right, cattleman, right. You know what I mean? If you think about it, and then it was like, oh wow, I didn't even think about this. But as time went on, and history with the the comic books, the Pulp Fiction books of that time and era, in the early 20th century, started romanticizing, that era of American life. The term cowboy became, popular. Now we're thinking about John Wayne and those type of what is it, Ponderosa and Bonanza, and all these films that in the early 1950s, Cowboys and Indians, so on and so forth. Now the black people completely like wiped out of the history of being being an involvement in the West, and where the true where rodeos came from. Actually, Bill Pickett was one of the characters in this movie was a cowboy. He basically had started riding bulls and breaking animals. Like that was actually something I learned that from researching the actual people in this film. So anyways, so again, I was very, very, hey, cool. I was really excited to see it. As soon as November 3rd came around, actually I was busy, so I had to wait till the following day. And then when I saw it, man, I was just like, wow, you did this with the story. Like you could have. Now I understood that this was these were real people in the, I'm a person, I look stuff up. So I wasn't surprised at the fact that, I knew this wasn't a biopic or a documentary or anything of that nature, right? I knew that they were going to be romanticized, and they were going to be, these stories were going to be made up. These people, the characters in the film were be based on real, actual people, but the story was made up. But here's my beef is that the story that they came up with was far less dignified to those people than it should have been. So, but I see everybody was like, up in applause and like, oh, this is a great film. And I'm sitting up there like, man, the stuff the images that they put forth, the plot that they put forth just didn't reach to that Freedman, caliber of what could be done. And over time, I've noticed all of these picks, specifically not last year, we had Self-Made with that talked about the story about, Madam C.J. Walker, and how, it just seems like to be something in the stories where they always are demasculating the men, or they're making the black male the big bad bully, when that wasn't, whether it be a historical person, with Harriet with Bigger Long, right? Where that was completely fictional. A black slave catcher that was made to be the boogeyman or the main villain. It's like Color Purple is the first film. I think all of these films kind of fall in that line of the Color Purple and how that hey, the big bad. Even though these are set in times where racial oppression was really at its height, is way more than the civil rights era, right? You know what I mean? And yet and still, we just somehow don't ever really focus on that. Very little in the Color Purple. The same thing with Self-Made. The same thing with Harriet. The same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's actually the black males are the enemies. These are the big bads, and it's like I've seen this. To me, it's just ridiculous. So that's the reason why I called all you guys saying, man, like, am I seeing the same thing? Because I'm seeing everybody saying, this is beautiful, this is great. The representation, I'm like, dog, this is completely opposite of great. This is completely but so I'll leave the floor, man. I've done said enough about this so far. And I think we should let Ross, Ross, we have our female Freedmen on the call. We definitely want to make sure we get the sister, because there's usually four of us talking.
We don't want to have no misogynoir in here.
Yeah,
we don't want nobody accusing us of misogynoir. Exactly. So let's we'll do that.
All right, fam. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak on the film. A lot of people don't know, when I lived in New York, I was a filmmaker, screenwriter, director, producer. So, and even before that, I grew up looking at the spaghetti westerns. The spaghetti westerns are films that were made by Sergio Leone in Italy. And he would often get a collective of people from various countries. And a lot of the times, if you notice, they're basically having to overdub the voices in English because they're actually speaking in their native languages, whether it's Italian for most part. But then they would bring people like Clint Eastwood in. He never spoke Italian, but they would just give him fewer lines. And they found out that Man with No Name, and that was pretty cool for him to say very little. And most of what he did, he would express himself. But he was Rowdy Gaines in the television show here in the U.S. And he just got a reputation. And they started doing the trilogy of For a Few Dollars More, Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And if you notice, it's several things that I look at and I really focus in on. And one of the things I want when I'm looking at a movie to take me to that time period, if it's a period piece. Now, Westerns are period pieces because they occurred right after the Civil War, and they would also feature, even though it was like an anachronism, they would, like Sergio Leone was fascinated with the Civil War. So a lot of those films would feature a Civil War, whether it's North and South or something along those lines in uniforms, even though, like I said, an anachronism because they really weren't fighting way out west. They were fighting on the Eastern Seaboard for the most part, or East Coast, when they were having the Civil War. They weren't way out in Wyoming, in Confederate and Union uniforms. So they did have that in the film. But at the same time, this is like the thing too is the music. People were like, oh, the music was fire. Yeah, if I'm at a club, I love, dancing reggae or hip hop or whatever. But having that as the foundation of music, basically it erased us as a people. It erased our legacy. Let me give you an example of what I thought was pretty dope. Now, the Coen brothers did a film called Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It was a musical, starred George Clooney, and they just had like it was music throughout the film, and it told a great story. But at the same time, the music was just acoustic. It was pure. It was like, wow, this was, it was dealing with various genres. They had this one brother that could play the hell out of the guitar, and he could sing. and he had several pieces in there. He was actually playing the guitar, but it would take you to that time period. It would never throw in, say, hip hop or jazz, because that wasn't a thing back in that particular period of time. And even at the end of that film, they had these three men that were grave diggers. They were all freedmen, and they had done a harmonized a piece about dying. And I said, wow, that was just powerful. And they were like basically giving a eulogy in their song. So I'm saying, why couldn't that have happened in this? But then I saw who the director was, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is Seal's brother, who's a British guy. Don't get me wrong, I got personal friends that are from England, but they don't know us like us. We were totally being erased in this film through our music and our heritage. The various characters that, I'm sorry if I'm going on and on, but the various characters that they put in were our ancestors' historic names and depictions of these people there. Why didn't they just create a new name? You could have said Henrik Brown or whatever. You could have given him her and the ladies different names than our ancestors. But it's like everybody, it was more of an international depiction of our ancestors, which wasn't so, through the music, through I mean, I didn't believe that Michael Beach was, for a second, was Idris Elba's dad. It just didn't make sense to me why they would do that casting. And if you're going to use our ancestors' names, for me, I don't want it erased through a fictionalized fake narrative. Then don't use their names. Just make up new names and make a new story. Django did it with Tarantino, and to me, that was a great successful thing. He did throw in a hip hop song in Django, which I didn't really appreciate. But the rest of Django was an amazing film because it was a film about revenge, about, I would say, a little bit before that time, but it was before the Civil War, but it was still an amazing film about revenge. This film, I'm not, I mean, it was like, I think, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think people were just really wanting to see, like, I love Regina King, wanted to see her do something. And I don't know, it started off okay. Then it just like, wait a minute, who am I rooting for and why?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
You hit it all on the head. I agree 100% on what everything that you said, because again, like, the story was all over the place. At some point you don't know who you're rooting for, and then at the same time, like Gerard said, it's like making these black boogeymen. It's almost like you said, Roz, they're using real life character names, but the way that they fictionalize them is in such a bad way or bad portrayal that it's almost just like, maybe they shouldn't even did it. They could have used, basically fictionalized names, a fictionalized concept. I think they could have came up with a better revenge narrative than, some blacks trying to get at each other, because that's not necessarily like the greatest revenge story to tell in America. And the same could be said, like, when Gerard, you mentioned Harriet, you know what I mean? Like, black people getting revenge upon each other isn't like the storyline of America. We know who the true enemy is.
Y'all from Detroit. I'm the only person with a little southern drawl on here. Let me just clarify this for you guys too. When they were talking about cowboys, that's exactly right, Gerard. But white people were called cattlemen. It was more of a noble type of title. And when our people came over there from doing the husbandry, knowing how to wrangle, sheep and goats and cows, they were extremely well versed in handling horses. I have one of my students that's an actual cowboy. He rides bulls, he rides horses, and his name is Dave. He's an actor also. But that just, I mean, they call them cattlemen, and they call black men cowboys. So when you're rooting for the team, the Dallas Cowboys, you're rooting for black men that were actually cowboys I mean, now it sounds dope. Cowboys, yeah. But you're actually rooting for black men and I mean, there were women, but they were the ones that left the plantation. People say, I'm sick of plantation and slave movies. Well, all the characters in the movie that were black were former slaves that were freed and left the plantation and went out west to make an independent life for themselves. So you're not talking about slavery, you're talking about people that were former slaves that were laying it down and doing their own thing by leaving the plantation and going out west to make a life and a better life for them and their own family. So I'm not understanding what people are talking about. It's like people need to understand history a lot better.
And then with that being said, again, them being former slaves, right? They know who, especially back that time, we knew who our enemies were. We're not going to shoot up a whole town of black people. You know what I'm saying? And in the middle of the West, where, you know, you got ex-Confederate soldiers, bushwhackers, probably people left over from the bushwhackers, and, you know, all, you know, in these Indian territories and so on. Like, it's just like we're going to have a black on black crime drama at this time. It's like, honestly, to me, it was nothing but like the Bloods and the Crips wrapped up in a Western story. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, the whole Crimson Hood.
Yeah,
the whole Crimson Hood angle did that to me.
You know, it's just like, what are we? Why would we could have definitely done something different. Something could have been done differently to where, you know, we could have had all these, you know, people still in a fictionalized role or whatever. I was talking to Stead earlier, right before this. We could have just did something just like you could have just stolen the Magnificent Seven and the Seven Samurai, right? There's a freedman town in Indian Territory that's getting bullied by, you know, the precursor to the KKK or the White KKK outright. You got these black cowhands or, you know, outlaw settlers, whatever, you know, badass black men, you know what I'm saying, and women. You know what I mean? That came in to teach the people how to teach the freedmen to, you know what I'm saying, how to fight and fight against the, you know what I'm saying, the racist white people. I mean, we could have used that story. That story has been used. That plot line has been used 1,001 times. But it would have made more sense in that setting and that time than you telling me that you got a Nino Brown. A Western version of Nino Brown, you know.
That's all I kept thinking about.
With the grilling,
that's what I kept thinking about.
Can I add a little bit more seasoning to this?
Go ahead, keep it.
That tastes a little great to me. One of the things too was the fact that they did not use the N-word. I'm gonna just be respectful of the podcast. They didn't use that during a antebellum time period. Does that make sense to you, or
postbellum?
Postbellum, yeah.
Time period.
Post-war.
Nobody used that word in the whole film at all. I mean, that's what I mean. It takes away from the authenticity of it to me, especially because you do. I mean, if somebody's evil and they're nefarious, or they say. I mean, you know, especially you got the people on the train and they're getting freeing Idris Elba's character. You think that they wouldn't? They kidnapped or shot one of the soldiers. You don't think they would have yelled out the N-word at all or said something to them when they? Do you not? I mean, does that even?
Yeah, you know why they probably couldn't do it. Because then it would have portrayed the movie in the light that we see it in right now without them even saying the N-word. So people would have been watching this movie, this black on black crime movie, and niggas just said, nigga, and they got the grill in and it's the hip hop music. And they like, is it connected to the timeline really? Like, is it a great portrayal of that time period?
So the director, right? What's his name? Yeah. How you pronounce his name? Is something
James something.
Is it James or James? I don't know.
No, he pronounced it James. Yeah.
He's Seal, the singer.
Brother, that's Seal's brother. That's Seal's brother.
They look alike.
They do look alike. Yeah, and the screenplay was done by a Jewish guy, the same guy that's done. He's done a lot of other films as well. His explanation,
a lot of black films actually.
Yeah, his explanation behind why they didn't use the N-word was because he basically stated, and and here we could pull up the article. You want to go ahead and pull up the article?
In Essence magazine.
Yeah, why the N-word wasn't used. In essence, it was supposed to be that these guys, these black people were so bad, and so when I mean bad as far as they were so hard, they wouldn't tolerate the N-word being used by anybody. That's why he was like, oh, the one guy started to say it. I think the train conductor was about to say it when she was blocking the train. And to make it stop, and then he didn't get to say it, and the joke was, oh, he could have been saying nincompoop. Well, we ain't no nincompoops. You know what I mean? Like that was
I mean,
but that's to me though, that was a fault. First a horse standing in the middle of a real
train track is getting ran over.
The train ain't gonna stop.
Period.
The train
can't get a train to stop now at that distance.
No, it's big. Exactly. It's gonna run it over. So to me, you would have made sense. They would have dynamited the train track ahead of time to where it had to stop or derail. That to me, I was like, well, she gonna stop though. That train would have just
let's look at the logistics. You got several thousand-pound, several multi-car train.
Right.
Barreling down the track, and a horse or a skunk, it doesn't matter.
They're gonna just knock it over.
They're not gonna stop because these
with a black woman on it.
Right. A black woman.
At that time.
Getting robbed. This is on an era of people not having much. I mean, even in this day and time, that's just like you driving down the street, brother, and somebody, a cat runs in front of you, a squirrel. Are you gonna flip your car over, and it's carjackings going like crazy like today? Are you gonna flip your car over to avoid a cat or a squirrel, or you just gonna say, I'm sorry, splash? I mean, I love animals, but I'm not going to wreck my car.
More so than that, they probably would have had more feelings about the horse than they would the black woman on the horse, right? You know what I'm saying?
Especially after
they would have been stopping for no, we'll say it, nigga on it, at all. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Especially if we understand this is after the Civil War, so we don't even have a need for you niggas to be here no more. You know what I'm saying? Y'all don't even have a point. Y'all not even here for us no more.
Right.
So you are completely valueless to me. The train and the horse ain't mine.
I mean, I met a whole lot of real hard people. So see, that's what I'm saying as far as the director and the writer not being us being erased. We can't even sit there and say, you know what? It's really important that you emphasize. I don't care. Like, they're robbing a bank. They're robbing a bank in a white town. It was painted white. All the people were white, and nobody.
That was so weird. The dirt was white.
Look, it's like she wouldn't have said
that was on purpose,
what
right?
What are you doing in here, or whatever? She wouldn't have. I mean, come on.
They wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have gotten up to that damn. But they were just so confused, right?
Walk in there, yeah.
Yeah,
especially in that time period when they wouldn't even let us ride horses in their town. So
right,
you gotta understand.
And then the bank manager actually helped. I'm like, wait up. So they were able to get back on the horse, and the bank manager even helped them with the money to put it on the saddle. I'm like, get the F out of here, dog. Ain't nobody taking no pop shots until like almost when they outside the town. I'm just oh my God.
I was watching the Emmett Till documentary. I was showing my mother-in-law. This had to have been, 2-3 months ago. And so this person told a story of their cousin. They said their cousin was in Mississippi walking down the street. And they didn't cross. It was a white person coming and a white man coming. He didn't cross the street. So the white man smacked him so hard he fell into the road. And he said his cousin was so upset, he just walked and kept walking either until he got to Memphis or until he got to Chicago. That's the story. So you telling me in 50-something, you couldn't even do nothing back. And you telling me in 1890-something, white people so intimidated by you, they won't even say the N-word? that whole train would have lit you up. The Union officers would have lit you up. The white town, they would have sent the whole, that's the part that really upset me. We're talking about the care of the characters and of our ancestors, the freedmen, historical figures, our music, our culture. And how I looked at it, you could have easily had a Bass Reeves movie where he was the main central character, and you just had some no names. Maybe they were based off of historical figures, and they were helping him to fight crime, fight white criminals, right? And that would have been the movie. Because, the thing for me, and I talked to Gerard about this, the issue for me is that Bass Reeves, like you said earlier, Ross, Bass Reeves was born a slave. He's the first black deputy U.S. Marshal west of the Mississippi. So a man born a slave in 1832 or 3, within his lifetime, is able to work a job where he can arrest white people for committing crimes. That's a story worth telling. Stagecoach Mary.
Imagine that.
And I told Gerard this. I wanted to go through all the characters, so maybe I'll try to do that.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's do that, man. Let's bring up the characters.
Let me share my screen right quick. I just go through them quickly, as I can do.
But as you doing that, man, it just the point is that they made the black people more menacing in this movie. You know what I'm saying? Than the whites were. And that just, to me, is just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. How could you dare do that?
Okay. So here's the cast. So we got Jonathan Majors as Nat Love. So I would just click everybody and try to read here. Pretty much everybody has a picture. Every individual has a picture. So Nat Love was born in 1854. He lived 1854 to 1921. So I was wrong. I thought it was 1911. But he died in L.A. at the age of 67. His other names were Red River Dick and Deadwood Dick. He was a cowboy, a rodeo performer, a Pullman porter, and an author. It says Love was born. Outlaw. Not an outlaw. None of that. Not a criminal in any way. Right. Born in Davidson County, Tennessee in 1854. Don't know the month, don't know the day, because he was a slave. Just like you don't know the day and the month and the year that your meat is made. Same with this. Love was born enslaved on the plantation of Robert Love in Davidson County, Tennessee, around 1854. His father was a slave foreman on the plantation's field. His mother was the manager of its kitchen. Love had 2 siblings, an older sister, Sally, and an older brother, Jordan. Despite slavery-era statutes that outlawed black literacy, he learned to read and write as a child with the help of his father, Samson. When slavery ended, Love's parents stayed on the Love plantation as sharecroppers, attempting to raise tobacco and corn on about 20 acres. But Samson died shortly after the second crop was planted. Afterward, Nat took a second job. So he already had one job as a sharecropper, which is to say, a step from slavery, because sharecropping, you was poor. He took a second job working on a local farm to help make ends meet. At about this time, he was noted as having a gift for breaking horses. After some time of working extra odd jobs in the area, he won a horse in a raffle on 2 occasions, which he then sold back to the owner for $50 each. He used the money to leave town, and at the age of 16, headed west. So I don't want to get into too much. He won a rodeo contest where he had to, here it is, he won $200 prize. He had to rope, throw, tie, bridle, saddle, and bronco riding contest. So he won all that and won $200. And he was basically a Wild West performer. And this is him. This is Nat Love.
That was
the individual
character. That was the hero,
the protagonist,
the protagonist.
He's supposed to have been the protagonist. Yeah. This is him later in his life after he was a Pullman porter.
That was a working freedman right there.
Right. Which was a very distinguished job. Being a porter was like one of the top jobs black men could have at that time, working on a train. You know what I'm saying? Like you was like, that'd be equivalent of back in the day working at GM, or you know what I'm saying, or working at Ford or whatever. It was a very, very dignified job for a black man, even though you was on the train. You know what I'm saying?
This is his autobiography that he published.
Not a criminal.
The Life and Adventures of Nat Love. and the cattle country, also known as Deadwood Dick. So that's him.
Mhm.
So then we go to the next character,
See,
Rufus Buck.
Hey guys, this is right
Yeah.
here is a symbol of, you see me doing this, that's what? Erasure.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I had to get
Hey, no,
my-
that's real, because I was gonna say modern Hollywood, they just somehow they can't make us noble, and they don't want to do that with our history, no
I
matter
saw
what
some
story
of
they
the
try to
comments
tell.
coming in, and they were
Yeah.
saying about, it's giving black
All black
people
cast,
jobs,
yeah.
but it's erasure of who we are.
I mean, Amos and Andy was giving black people jobs. Freaking the minstrel show. At one point in time, black people became the minstrel show. First, it was white people in blackface. Then it became black people in blackface. Okay, your point is, that's how I look at it. Just because a job, like
All work ain't good work.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
the thing.
What
Even Robert
conveying?
Townsend talks about in Hollywood Shuffle. All
Right.
work ain't good work. And if you got to sell yourself out or your community out to work in Hollywood, Hollywood ain't the place for you. You know what I mean? That's just, that's the simple way that I look at it. If you got to sell out your community.
Thank you for your comment, because it gives.
Oh, yeah, always. That's my dad. He'll be okay.
I think that's my dad.
So now we get to Rufus Buck. So this is the Rufus Buck gang right here.
Right.
They were an outlaw, multiracial gang. So I guess this is some of that multiracial coalition we've been looking at. It died in 1895. This is BIPOC right here.
BIPOC. Yeah, that's a true BIPOC.
Yeah.
Right. This is an outlaw,
that's the real
multiracial
BIPOC
gang whose members were part African American and part Creek Indian. Their crime spree took place in the Indian Territory of the Arkansas-Oklahoma area from July 30th through August 4th of 1895. So 2 months. Not even 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Two weeks. Not 30-some years.
Right. Formed by Rufus. Say it again.
I said, look, like people's vacation days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, they were some teenagers. They were some young bucks. That's
yeah. Let me pull up the
picture.
This is all of them. This is all. Rufus Buck here is in the middle. This is Rufus Buck. So does he look like Idris? I can kind of see it a little bit in the eyes. In the eyes
he look like Idris.
Yeah. I can't tell, but he looked like he must be about 6 foot, maybe 6'5".
Nah, bro.
Right? Is that just me?
Yeah, that's just you, man. Hey, nobody in that except for the brother from the second from the right, or second from the left, shall I say? Well, no, is that the right? No, second from the right. That's the only one that looked dark complected in that picture, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, if you saw that, hey, bro, you would say those are hombres, those are the homeboys, those, you know what I'm saying? Those some cats from LA or something, East LA or something like that, man.
As soon as he take off his hat and we see that hair come down, we gonna know he ain't one of us. So he got that hat on, he trying to blend in. But yeah, I mean, you could say
the movie was an all-black gang, right?
Right. You could say that. You could tell me that was all Mexicans. And I wouldn't know no difference.
And nobody would know the difference. Nobody would be able to tell you. Nobody would challenge you on that. Like, yeah, those are Mexicans, Nobody would say nothing.
But it says that the gang formed by Rufus Buck, the gang consisted also of Lewis Davis, Sam Sampson, Maoma July, and Lucky Davis. The gang began building a small stockpile of weapons while staying in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. After killing U.S. Deputy Marshal John Garrett on July 30th, 1895, the gang began holding up various stores and ranches in the Fort Smith area during the next 2 weeks. In one incident, a salesman named Callahan, after being robbed, was offered a chance to escape if he could outrun the gang. When the elderly Callahan successfully escaped, the gang killed his assistant in frustration. At least 2 women victims were raped by the gang, died of their injuries. And so the majority of their victims, as far as me and Jirah could ascertain, were white. They were primarily operating out of Indian territory to drive out white settlers from Indian territory. So it's not a question of whether or not I believe their motives were just or unjust, but to contextualize, they weren't black. So the quote unquote villains in this movie who were black in real life were not what you would consider to be descendants of freedmen or black people or African American or anything like that. and they only operated for a period of 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, not 30-something years.
Mm-hmm. They could have set that. They could have set that story up in a whole different way if they wanted to. You know what I'm saying?
Totally
just
could have.
off of a 2 week time span, and these being young boys, they could have just set it up like they was tired of what was going on to their parents, and boom. That's
to give some more context on it. You know, Rufus Buck was raised in a missionary. You know what I mean? He was raised by, like, you know, he was adopted. He was one of those Indian missionaries, you know, that they took the children in and, you know, had them speak English and couldn't, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, you know, that probably had a lot to do with his resentment towards whites, you know,
right?
And to make it to where, like, you know, you made, again, to me, this is nothing but the bigger long. And then the funny part about it is that you have primarily, you know, I'm gonna say you have black people, but of a certain gender that actually defend the existence of this type of character. Whenever you talk about this, the first thing you hear back, well, you know, we ain't gonna act like. This is like almost verbatim what this person said, and like I said, you could tell their gender by, you know, you ain't gonna act like that. Black people weren't, you know, having violence against black people. You know, black men were, you know, black people were villains too. You know what I mean? Like, people literally take these fictionalized ass stories, right? From Mr. from Color Purple. To me, that was like the first one that I can know of, that I know of, that Hollywood created, that historically just wouldn't have existed. You know, a black man that owned his own farm, to have that, you know, that was just a freaking monster to everybody around him, right?
James Baldwin talked about that a lot too, just how he, you know, how we do that to black characters. He talked about what's it, Bigger Thomas from what was that Black Boy by Richard Wright? How you create these black characters who are just evil, and there's never a context for it. So you just hate these characters, and you never understand why they came to be this way or how they came to be this way. And so they're not given the humanity of the reason. And in this movie, they try to give a reason, but it's still a bad reason.
It didn't make sense.
A horrible reason. Yeah.
And
at the end of the day,
when he walked in, I'm sorry, Gerard. When he walked in the beginning, Idris Elba's Rufus Buck character walked in, and Michael Beach and his family was sitting down, about to have dinner. It was no dignity to it, because this is a spoiler, but he shoots Michael Beach's wife. For the most part, I mean, that's no dignity in it. You're shooting an unarmed woman, and in front of her child. I mean, it just didn't even make sense to me. Like, what was the motive behind all that? This was like,
and the motive that they gave later on in the movie was supposedly Michael Beach's character was actually Rufus Buck's father. He at an earlier time in his life, he was a bad man. He had, you know, I guess, beat his mother to the point to where she died, and therefore, but all of this happens off screen. You find this through a monologue that he's having with the character, and you know what? What I was sitting up there thinking, like, okay, that's funny. Is it a lie or is it not a lie? Because, like you had said, Stead, you know, because the character Nate Love was like, you lying. You know what I mean? And up until that point, like, do we know? You know, because honestly, if you don't show it, we don't know. Like they say, if you don't show the body, if you see if somebody claim the body dies, you know what I'm saying, and they don't show the body, that person isn't dead. That spoiler alert. That's how I figured out that the old man in the Squid Games was part of the whole gig. Because I'm like, oh, they didn't kill his body. They didn't show us his body. Everybody else they show us killed.
It was a very lazy way to tie that in together, because I mean, even when we're writing and you're doing you gotta, if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage, right? And just to verbalize and say, oh well, my father, he was my dad and he beat my mother and you're my brother. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess that was the Star Wars version of Luke, I am your father. Yeah. I mean,
I'm your brother.
What? I did not believe for 1 second that Idris Elba was kin to Michael Beach. I'm sorry, that it just still doesn't. Right. It's like an international mindset for telling a spaghetti western that didn't make sense to me. I mean, and then everybody wants to have in a postbellum film like this. I mean, like you said, someone had mentioned if it were a white town and some marauders coming in, and these guys came in and were helping the black town to be able to fend off the marauders, that would have been an interesting
That would have been a
story.
dope.
We're sitting up here looking at a film that is trying to not vilify white people in a postbellum time period. That now
Right.
to me, that's like a slap in the face. It's and black people are like cheering for it. I want to hear from people too that why do you like the film other than seeing black faces? Because you're telling me you're just thirsty to see a black face in a space, and I want us to be more. I want us to have a higher expectation of ourselves. That's what I want.
Right.
I don't want us to be sitting there co-signing on being erased.
And see, the thing for me, even is like with the characters, the way they handle the characters, you don't have an emotional connection to any of them. So, like when Jim Beckworth gets shot, and he's on 3, and he's sitting there twirling his guns and playing around, you're not given even an ample time to grieve for this person who died that you've essentially had. I don't know, because it was an hour. That was an hour and 20 minutes in. So you've had this time with this young character. But then, like, he's dead, and you don't even see him. Like, nobody grieves for him. It doesn't slow down to show that there's any kind of solemnity to the moment. It's just like, oh, he's dead. Oh, we gotta, and then Lakeith Stanfield character just walks away. Oh, he talks too much and walks away. It's just like you never get a chance to actually come to terms with the lives that are lost. It becomes like John Wick. Like, that's what I told Gerard. It's like Django, John Wick, and Black Tombstone. Like, that's what this movie was. It was like a knockoff, I would say, Cowboy Kill Bill, but that's kind of what Django was. So, I mean, and not to say knockoff, because Quentin Tarantino did both, and I think Django is markedly different than Kill Bill in a lot of meaningful ways. But that's what it was. It was like if you was trying to make a black cowboy Kill Bill and Django didn't exist, and you were not as good of a screenwriter or director, you would make this. That's what this would be.
Well,
because there was nothing in it.
Right. You were about to bring up another character. I think we got to talking. Stagecoach Mary.
So this is what really kind of hurt me a lot. So Stagecoach Mary, her real name is Mary Fields. She's also known as Black Mary. And one of the important things that she did, she was born in 1832. So she was older than Nat Fields by 22 years.
Nat Love.
Sorry. She was older than Nat Love by 22 years.
Wouldn't have been a love interest.
Right. Wouldn't have been a love interest in the least. But she was the first African-American female Star Route mail carrier in the United States. And so basically I had to look it up. The Star Route lines was like the U.S. government contracted out certain routes because they were like too difficult to get to or something like that.
They were dangerous.
So they gave her the route. She was the first black female to get that job. Now we can talk about whether, what that means as it pertains to work and the work we expect black women to do and the work we expect white women to do, and looking at that from a feminist perspective. But irrespective of that, that's what she did. And the reason they called her Stagecoach Mary was because she rode a stagecoach to do her job. It wasn't because she was a robber or some kind of brigand or or she wasn't a whore or some kind of. She drove a stagecoach. And so I just give a brief. Fields was born into slavery in Hickman County, Tennessee in around 1832. After the Civil War ended, she was emancipated and found work as a chambermaid on board the Robert E. Lee, a Mississippi River steamboat. So she was 35 at this point, at least. There, she encountered Judge Edmund Dunn and ultimately worked in his household as a servant period. After Dunn's wife died, he sent Fields and his late wife's 5 children. So they don't claim they say his wife's children like he didn't make them. to live with his sister, Mother Mary Amadeus, in Toledo, Ohio, where she was Mother Superior of an Ursuline convent. So he sent this woman to live in a convent with his 5 kids and his sister, who was a nun. And eventually, Mother Amadeus was sent to the Montana Territory, what Gerard talked about earlier, to establish a school for Native American girls at St. Peter's Mission, west of Cascade. Learning that Amadeus was stricken with pneumonia, Fields hurried to Montana to nurse her back to health. Amadeus recovered, and Fields stayed at St. Peter's, relegated multiple charges regarded as men's work at the time. So this is a job she did: maintenance, repairs, fetching supplies, laundry, gardening, hauling freight, growing vegetables, tending chickens, repairing buildings, and eventually became the forewoman. So this is at least 1884. She would have been 52. She was doing all this stuff. The Native Americans called her White Crow because she acts like a white person and has black skin. She did open up. She eventually opened up a business in after 1894, but it went bankrupt. 10 months later, she opened up a tavern. And then with her postal work, I just want to get to this because this is tough.
Sounds like a Freedmen story, right?
At 60, right? But at 60 years old in 1895, 63 to be precise, she secured a job as a star route carrier, which used a stagecoach to deliver mail in the unforgiving weather and rocky terrain of Montana, with the help of nearby Ursuline nuns who relied on Mary for help at their mission. This made her the first African-American woman to work for the U.S. Postal Service. True to her fearless demeanor, she carried multiple firearms, most notably a .38 Smith & Wesson under her apron to protect herself and the mail from wolves, thieves, and bandits, driving the route with horses and a mule named Moses. She never missed a day, and her reliability earned her the nickname Stagecoach Mary, due to her preferred mode of transportation. Now, this is the part that's real tough. If the snow was too deep for her horses, she delivered the mail on snowshoes, carrying the sacks on her shoulders. So I thought that was really important to look at. If the horses couldn't handle the snow, she walked to deliver the mail. And you made her a whore in a movie. And that's what we're supposed to think is black people getting jobs.
That woman had Stagecoach Mary had so many jobs. She was so talented. She was so gifted. And remember, let's take it to somebody that's alive at that point in time, Callie House, right? And she was doing, all this postal service work and just trying to get security for a woman, or these washwomen when they were at the age of past retirement. No, I'm just mentioning Callie House at that time was in existence, and this woman was working. She was talented. She was gifted. She was capable. She worked at 62 with several firearms on her. And I'm trying to get, I had to mention the firearms piece because that's important. But she had to be able to defend herself in her job. She wasn't sitting there waiting for somebody to protect her, because this woman came up from slavery and there was no rest for the weary. She might have been 62 and she may have had arthritis. She may have been tired, but she put mail sacks, it's not like the little mail bags or something you carry around like a little purse. These are huge bundles that you whip across your back, and it weighs about 75 to 100 pounds with snowshoes on. She was doing what a mule couldn't do. And was expected to do it, and she did it every day, and she never failed and wavered. And this woman wasn't given, like we have today with U.S. Post Office, that's a federal government job. She wasn't given like any kind of security or retirement plan once she did stop doing it. So we have to keep all this in effect. And so that's where I'm saying erasure. It's like they had her set up from a brothel owner to she had a tavern that failed. In this movie, she was a successful tavern owner or brothel owner,
madam or
whatever.
that knocked out dudes at the drop of the hat. And so that was another major problem I had with the film was like, all of this gender, women positive affirmation and empowerment, at just ridiculous, feats, you know what I mean? Like first and foremost, so we get introduced to her when Nat he went, I believe he's coming back from killing one of the guys that had participated in the murder of his parents, right? And he had gotten revenge on that guy, and so now he's coming into town, I guess, to see her, and she does this. So we get introduced. She's having some sort of musical, number, like it reminds you of something out of Hamilton. And I honestly hate musicals, just in general. I don't like musicals because it's like, to me, like that's some Sesame Street stuff, man. You do musicals for people who can't pay attention for a long period of time. Like, oh, you're breaking it. To me, that breaks the story. Like, you know what I'm saying? Nobody jumping up in song and dance. Like, this is dumb. I mean, honestly, I really don't like musicals. I swear to God.
He just went in on musicals.
I hate musicals, bro. Like, I'm like,
but you really think though, Gerard, about musicals?
I hate them. The only musical I like was West Side Story. That's about it, man. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Gerard, you acting like the dad from Footloose, bro.
You know what, though?
You ain't rock with the Wiz, Gerard?
Oh, yeah, and the Wiz. I like the Wiz. That's about it. Go ahead, Ross. You saying something?
Scene. I tell you just.
You totally forgot it, right? It was terrible.
I totally forgot that she did that scene. I didn't even remember.
It was terrible. It was like, oh my, this is something out of Rent or something. Like, it was terrible, man.
Yeah,
I
muted all the music personally.
Shotgun on the floor, and it's supposedly, I'm just like, oh, dude, this really. So anyway, so then she you know what I'm saying? She sees Nate, and they got this back and forth, and then some point, you know what I mean? She just bam, just knocks him down. You know what I'm saying? Knocks him on his ass or what have you. That was to establish her authority. Like, hey, these women, there's no, and they purposely, and then, in the interviews, they're saying, we definitely weren't going to make these women subservient and blah, blah, blah. You didn't have, okay, fine, granted. Well, why are you going to make it in some antagonistic type of thing? We already have a bunch of gender wars issues that in the Black community are dealing with. Well, you know what I'm saying? We know first and foremost that shit.
And okay, this is my issue too.
Go ahead.
Why would you have a woman kiss the man and then belt him? Because you're sending a mixed signal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like he did. What if he kissed her and belted her then? Mm-hmm. Then it would have been abusive. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. It's like, if anytime we as freedmen women, we should never be getting our power from abuse of our men. That's abusive. It's sending a mixed signal, and then a minute and a half later, they're up in her room. I mean, what? It's just like, this is some, real bipolar type of mentality. They
fantasize the toxicity. That's what they do.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Like you said, fantasizing the toxicity, Ernest. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what was that about? You know what I mean? I know what it's about. It's to appease that type of crowd. You know what I'm saying? Because there's some women, Black women, there's some women, period, they like that. You know what I mean? They like to see men being emasculated. You know what I mean? And it's like, for you to get your power doesn't mean I have to be emasculated. But that's what they do in a lot of these films. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, the men are bumbling, dumbling, they're dumb, they're stupid. You know what I mean? And, they are either they're dumb and stupid or they
just senseless,
are like super evil monsters.
Psychotic.
This same woman goes to Rufus Buck's camp and pretty much tries to lie and get. I mean, it was like, why is she doing this? This doesn't even, as nefarious as they portrayed him to be, as that character, Rufus Buck. Why would you go there and hope that you just that silver tongue, slick talking a woman? You weren't that good, boo.
And that was a thing too. Like, don't go. But she had to make it.
And she told him she didn't need his permission. She gave him 3 Negroes and said she didn't need his permission. And Black Girl Magic. And then what happened?
What happened?
And then what
Now they got to
happened?
go
Then she
save her.
got caught, and he had to
Right.
go get his ass whooped to get her back. So then she don't have to face any consequences for her actions.
Or accountability.
And that's the moral of the story. That's really the moral of the story. I mean, but like what you even with cuffing, why is that the doorman? Why do you have a 5'2" female in drag as the doorman of your brothel? What are you trying to prove? I don't care. You know, it's just like if you got a 22, yeah, you could probably kill somebody, but I bet a 45 will do it better. You know what I'm saying? What is
Absolutely.
But this movie goes for cheap wokeisms instead of
Right.
substantive, historically relevant, or historically accurate, even if it's fiction. Because historical fiction exists, right? There are all kinds of historically fictitious movies that exist. But why did you have to go and try to place modern day sensibilities into a historical film about post-bellum, post-Reconstruction era black former slaves in the Wild West?
And with I mean, like I
Hollywood.
said, they'd have made up some names of Judy the butcher, or I don't care what they named it, but Henry the Horseman. It doesn't matter. If they'd have done that, then that would have been better for me personally, because then I'll be like, okay, whatever. But they're using our actual ancestors' names in nomenclature and tying them to a fictitious story, which is way less sensational and impressive than their own resume.
Right.
It would be one
Right.
thing if they were making them noble, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you start
Yeah.
tying it to a narrative that's just like, come on, this is not respectable. Like, you know, even if not respectable, some people who just don't have the range or even know about the history, they would assume this is the real history. Like, this is a portrayal of how it was.
Right.
That's
And that's what most people do.
Well,
most
and
people
that's-
take their cues from that. And then, 10, 15 years later, right?
Exactly.
Young kids, you know what I'm saying? Because I remember when Color Purple came out, like in 85, 86, like I was only like 4 or 5. I remember my, you know what I'm saying? I fell asleep with my parents, you know what I mean? They had no babysitter, so we had to go, you know what I'm saying? I fell asleep or whatever. But I mean, my mother said it to the day, my father was like, he hated that movie. He was just like, you know what I'm saying? He's like, this is an anti-black male movie, you know what I mean? And then like but you know how many people treasure and love Color Purple and like, and take a lot of cues off of like thinking that's reality, you know what I'm saying? Or how black men treat black women like you know what I'm saying, like monsters. People take their cues off of movies. You hear people saying they'll even reference a movie when you talking to them. Just like it, that's blah blah blah. This movie, you're like, wait up, man, this is fake.
I'm gonna make an admission on air. I cried in The Color Purple many times, but I was, didn't. It was an emotional scenes that kind of got me, of separation or whatever, that got me at that time. But then it's like I started hearing my cousin and some other men saying, and I recounted what the movie was, and then I started saying, you know what? They did that. I mean, you talking about Steven Spielberg. He knows how to put a film together and make you pull certain emotional things out, crying and all that. I thought it was a great movie. But when I listened to my brothers and or cousins or whomever that were saying how bad it looked, like they said, you name one black man in that movie that was a positive side. And I said, you know what, you're right. And I grew up with a bunch of positive black men. My dad, my brothers, my granddad, my uncles. I just had positive roles around me. So I just didn't see what The Color Purple was showing. And then I thought, well, what about some sisters that grew up in a different way than I did? They didn't have a dad in the home. They were abused by maybe the men or the boyfriends or whatever that came in. Then that's just going to reaffirm that image for them. So even back then at that point in time, I was just very aware of Hollywood depictions of black men, and I've always been an ally and back you guys and will be behind you for that, because I've always been very just super critical and very super sensitive, like we got to get when it comes to the imagery of our people. We got some very negative images out there. Then you look at the writer, you look at the directors, you look at the producers and see who's putting the energy and the green lighting this kind of thing, messaging. And you can't just be happy that you see a black face in on screen. You can't just, it has to be deeper than that.
And I'm telling you, they've taken the blueprint. Okay, cool. This got a lot of black women in the theaters, and black women love it. So you definitely got to show some sort of, black empowerment scene. One, she has to be a victim of some sort. Second, you know what I'm saying? There has to be some lesbian scene in there, some way, somehow, either real or not real or close to it, right? So I can tell you, Color Purple definitely has those elements in it, right? Because I think it's. Then look at the damn what's I'm trying to think the movie about Madam C.J. Walker, right? They have that element is in it. You know what I'm saying? Not Harriet to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying?
Ma Rainey.
Black Monster. You know what I mean? The relationship she had with whatchamacallit's character.
Chadwick Boseman's character.
Yeah, Ma Rainey and Black Bottom. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you Ma Rainey, right. That actually was, you know what I'm saying, out of all of them, Ma Rainey was
it was good. It was a good portrayal.
It was
time period.
Yeah, of course, but right. But you know what I'm saying? And it was alleged that she was that, right? But you know what I'm saying? And the black males in that, and that was written by a black obviously the set of film, set of works were, but now I was thinking about the Madam C.J. Walker, that movie, Self-Made, right? Self-Made. Now, mind you, they made her husband in the movie an antagonist, right? You know what I'm saying? They made her daughter a homosexual in the movie, right? You know what I'm saying? And they used the contemporary music in that movie as a soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm saying. This movie right now is just this literally is just coming off. This is a copycat in so many ways, right? All these different elements in reality. Madam C.J. Walker, whose husband's name that she actually used, or he wasn't he wasn't a cheater. You know what I'm saying? He didn't try to undercut her business. You know what I mean? He was an aid to her. You know what I'm saying? Her daughter, even though she hanged around, she was a socialite in Harlem, but there was no real substantive or substance behind her being any type of homosexual. She was married like 2 or 3 different times throughout her life. Now, I don't think she ever had kids, but she was married 2 or 3 different times throughout her life. You know what I mean? Like, just again, like you said, Stedman, we're going to take these 21st century sensibilities and we're going to implant this on something that wasn't. And we're going to make it that way in order for us to be able to digest it and say, yay, look at this.
Right.
And everyone,
and it's like, no different.
Come on, man.
And it would be no different than if they made a George Washington movie, and in a way it's kind of Hamilton. But if they made a George Washington movie and had him talking to black people like equals, that wouldn't fit. It just wouldn't fit. And so either we want to understand history and what happened and what people were like and what they went through and what they overcame for a reason, or we just want to tell a happy, friendly story so that people feel better and believe this big propaganda. And we all go about our day believing that this country is the greatest country on earth and it can't ever get any better and nothing ever needs to change. I mean, that's what it amounts to.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know what I mean?
After all of us have pretty much, I guess, said what we said, has anybody kind of checked in and said, like...
Yeah, do we have anybody in the lobby? I don't see nobody in the lobby, do we? Or anybody? No.
I mean,
hey, Dad, you want to call in?
Yeah, I posted up. I was hoping one of the brothers from BTP came on because I was talking to the brothers from BTP. We all fellow reparationists. We all love each other, man. Yeah. But I really wanted to try to understand why they like this movie because I'm just like, I just thought for sure, like, man, the BTP brothers, they gonna like this up. You know what I'm saying? I was like, nah, we like the film. I was like, what? I was like,
I mean,
but everybody has a point of view, and you
well, most of them are from Chicago or New York, so New Yorkers don't. to me, I'm sorry. I see most New Yorkers that were posting pre-me not being on social media any longer. But somebody said not right now, but thanks for the offer, Dennis Fry.
That's Ted's
Oh,
dad.
okay. But
He's like 4 against 1.
He said he don't want to lay into y'all. He don't want to lay into the 4 of us. He gonna go easy on us. He gonna go easy on us.
I mean, the thing is, it's like, I mean, I grew up looking at, I mean, one of the films I could say I looked at in many times over was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, A Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, Lee Van Cleef, Clint Eastwood. I mean, you had all kinds of, the way those films were written, the music. I mean, this iconic music from the ocarina that Ennio Morricone was playing. We had some, you know, great vocalists and I mean, people were doing all kinds of gospel music or spiritual or soulful kind of music back then, and people played the guitar or harmonica. That's where, you know, blues and jazz.
Well, that's the thing for me. Yeah, I'm a big blues person. I mean, Muddy Waters, Hollywood, even the Delta blues, Robert Johnson, Robert Patton. Like, I love blues, deep Chicago blues, Delta blues. I love blues.
What's that song by Howlin' Wolf when he talking about the train? Woo,
Smokestack Lightning.
Yeah, man. They could have used that. You know what I'm saying? Like that would have been appropriate. You know what I mean? Like that would have been dope. You know what I'm saying? Like
even John Lee Hooker, he got that song, pow, 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 pow. Like you could have used that.
You could have used like American.
It's an outlaw.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They don't think Jay-Z. I want to say this before it's over with. I feel like Jay-Z is like one of the biggest cancers in the black community today. I believe that with my whole heart.
With your whole heart.
I mean, one of New Yorker,
biggest cancers.
No harm, but I mean, I love my New York fam. I used to live there, but New Yorkers don't know, man. I mean, they don't understand. I haven't met a New Yorker yet that really understands the country and the Western. They don't understand that kind of energy. It's like it's foreign to them. You understand what I'm saying? As far as, okay, if it weren't for a lot of people going to the military or whatever, okay, you're in the middle of the woods now. Know where can you get water? Where can you get food? What plants can you eat? What kind of tree is this? Survive. Start a fire. They don't know how to do that. You understand what I'm saying? Bro. So you're talking about, it's so foreign to them, and that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of people that I've been reading about, they were like, "Oh yes, this, you know, it was like that. It was lit. It was fire. It was this." But you don't see the erasure. You don't see that. I mean, and that's what I question. I mean, if people enjoyed the movie, then they don't have as high a bar maybe as we do, and expectations.
Yeah, I think that's really what
the problem is.
No bar. The
problem is,
like they say, the bar is hell.
Hey, the problem is when people love these movies, 10 to 15 years later, we get another stretch just like this one. So, you know, that's just, the director is praised, and now he gets to producing all type of stuff, and you're like, is this really the portrayal? Like they did that with Lena Headey and like the Shy and all of this, like, you know, like people from Chicago, like, is this really out of city, man? And hey, but she's a great director according to the black community, so this is how it plays out.
That's why I'm glad that Detroit movie they tried to do about the 1967 riots didn't work, because I mean, people saw, they said this is not how it went down. This ain't nothing like it. And I mean, you tried to say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make a movie about the Detroit riots so we could capitalize off all this civil unrest," but you told a lie.
Hey, you know what's crazy about that,
bro? It was a lie.
Me and Rose, we ain't from Detroit, you know, Chicago and Cleveland, so we like, damn, this how Detroit was back in the like protest days.
No, bro, it's a lie. Like you can go to the Detroit Historical Museum; they have an exhibit on it, and it's free. Yeah. And you can go check it out. It gives you more of a real work. Because like my parents, they was like 8 when the riots happened. So they remember like when curfew in Inkster, they remember it was a curfew. You couldn't even be out in Inkster, you know? Yeah. And it wasn't like that movie.
My mother said they went on Visitor Road and you know what I'm saying? Like they're out of Rouge, man. Rouge and E-Course, you know what I mean? ain't nowhere near the west side of Detroit. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, well, they took the opportunity to you know, loot them businesses or whatever. Now, what kills me is like the rebranding of the riots. You know what I'm saying? Now they say here, Roz, that this was a rebellion. They refer to it as the rebellion. People today,
Uprising.
people who so quote unquote woke, you know what I mean? They won't even call it a riot. They say, oh, the rebellion. You know, and they actually got journalists.
They call it uprising too, right?
Huh?
Don't they call it an uprising too?
The uprising and the. I'm like, yo, come on, man. Like, no, motherfuckers was taking an opportunity to, you know what I'm saying? Just like how it happened in Newark. Newark actually, it was the same year. Newark in New Jersey, when they freaking had their riot, it was the same year as Detroit. I think theirs was a little bit earlier, and there's actually in many states of New York, the many states of Newark, it actually talk about it in that movie or whatever. But it was like, you know, come on, man. It was a bunch, you know, in essence, it was a bunch of black people, you know, on because the west side of Detroit is heavily Jewish, right? So most of those merchants were all Jewish, you know what I'm saying? And it was basically these brothers, the brothers were coming back from Vietnam, or they won't leave from Vietnam, or they were coming back from Vietnam. And they were having a party, and then it got raided. And you know what I'm saying? Because of all of the racial tension that was going on at that time, because especially at that point in time, it was a rebellion in Newark. Yeah, maybe so, man. I don't know. You know, to me, a rebellion means you need a leader. There's an opposition. There's a manifesto. There's demands. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you know, no. It went on for a long period of time. Like, they had unrest for a long period of time, and you know, people shooting at the police and at, you know, National Guard and blah blah blah. But that's not you know, in my definition of what a rebellion is, that's not a damn rebellion. It was people, again, they were taking an opportunity to break into, just like they did, you know what I'm saying, this last time with the George Floyd. Was that a rebellion?
No.
Oh, I mean, come on, man. You know, like honestly,
but see, like to get back to like the movie, it's
right,
the portrayal of the history, right?
Right.
And
exactly.
the movies are supposed to give us some sort of portrayal, you know, of the history. But it's like, if you're going to fictionalize it all the way, you should at least take the steps or efforts to make it positive in some sense when you're dealing with iconic characters of a specific lineage. Like that's just overall. And they do it with every other ethnicity except for ours. So, you know, this is the problem with Hollywood.
Yeah,
man.
And you know,
belly my ass.
I think when you look at, I haven't seen Birth of a Nation, the Nate Parker movie, but I feel like that's why that movie didn't get attention, right? That movie doesn't get attention because it tries to put.
And I, for the life of me, don't understand why. I mean, people weren't. I mean, one, they had women groups that were rebelling against it. Don't go see it. Nate Parker did blah blah in college that he was acquitted for. And he was found guilty. I mean, I'm sorry, not guilty.
Right.
My apologies, not guilty for. And these women groups were vilifying the movie. I saw it and I'm like, wow, this is something we should really get behind. And I went to see the movie, I think, a couple times, and I was like, I didn't understand why we weren't just going. And people are like, I hate slave movies, but this is one where the man actually.
I don't know. I wasn't impressed by it, Ross. I'm gonna be honest with you.
They ain't do enough. They didn't
do enough. And yeah, so here the whole movie we have to be subjected to black people getting their ass handed to them, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, cool. We know that this rebellion is gonna happen, right? You know what I'm saying? We know. Now, bruh, that rebellion lasted for like damn near a month, I think. You know what I'm saying? And like they were tearing, and what we was expecting was the carnage from the harder they fall. Right. That's what we right. So here's the thing. You can always show black, unmitigated black violence when it's happening to black bodies or it's black on black. But when unlike Django, that's why I love it so much. That's why my fantasy team is named Django Moving Chains. My fantasy team is Django Moving the Chains, man. That's how much I love Django. Really, my man, when he was whipping the pie, taking that white boy on that. You know what I'm saying? You know how powerful that was to see a black man whooping a white man? That's what Dick Gregory said. You know what I'm saying? Bam, he's tearing that ass up. You know what I'm saying? Like getting retribution. true retribution, bro. They don't never show that.
What they did, they had like the silhouette of these black men, and they were talking about how they raided all, 20 days, 25 days, whatever it was. And I'm thinking, wow, this is it? Like they should have, that to me was, that didn't, no, that wasn't fantasy. That was actually, it happened. Yeah, Django, but I'm saying that actually happened with Nat Turner. Nat Turner actually
that was a real
did
story.
wreak carnage on white people, and he
not him and a bunch of a bunch of slaves.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? They got enough of them. You know what I mean? Like literally, they was cutting off. They cut off people, children, women. They cut off some heads. You know what I'm saying? That scared the country. So they scared the whole country off of that.
And
the whole country.
Black people in the South that they far outnumbered white people.
The black belt.
Who was going to keep these people in check? I mean, so if you love Django, then Django, I mean, are we gonna start having to get Tarantino to produce our film?
So.
I mean, what the heck?
He the only one that's not. He the only one that's not spineless.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Tarantino is the only one that's actually in the modern day showing, that kind of retribution and retaliation that makes sense to us. Because I didn't like that part about the Nate Parker film either. It was like, okay, they were just showing in silhouette. They going with,
and he was caught. Then he was caught. Like the rebellion happened, and he was caught the next day.
Yeah.
And then that movie they did make about. Now here's another one, right? So they made a series on Showtime
about Lord Bird.
Yeah, exactly. Then they made a fictional character.
Don't even.
Man, they made this fictional character of this black boy that was in drag that was along with them as they were going on these raids or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I was like, why was that? Why would you have to do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why? Like, that's not necessary. So, Roz, did you ever see it?
It's a book.
No.
It's a book. I got the book. I haven't read it, but I got the book from somewhere.
So they made a series on
Bird
Showtime. I want to say it was Showtime because I went and got Showtime just for it. It came out last year. It was last year. It was 2020.
What was the name of it?
The Good Lord Bird.
The Good Lord Bird, right?
Oh.
And in that movie, in that series, because it was a series, probably it was a mini series, right? Maybe 6-7 episodes. The whole movie is being narrated by this young mulatto slave, right? That somehow ends up getting caught. He
gets found by John Brown or something.
Right.
He gets found or freed or something.
Right. What ends up happening is I think him and John Brown shows up there somewhere, in Missouri or somewhere in one of these outer territories right of the South. And the boy is there with his father. And they're I think they actually own I think his father's a barber, and you know what I'm saying, and they're cutting hair. And so John Brown is basically, he's scouting, the resistance, you know what I'm saying? So he gets there, and so no, I'm sorry. No,
was it Maryland or West Virginia?
I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I have to look, see it again. But anyways, make a long story short, they were actually in, his father and the boy were actually in the employment of a white person. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he was a slave master or whatever. So it was his shop at West Virginia. Yeah, I can say West Virginia. But West Virginia West Virginia was part of Virginia during the Civil War. West Virginia become West Virginia until after the Civil War. So anyways, it was frontier, but still I was frontier territory at that time. In the mountains, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, that's why I remember it just being out, they were out somewhere, you know what I mean? They weren't near civilization. And he showed up to kind of you guys not associated with Be the Power. We associate in the sense that we're reparationists, you know what I mean? That's how we're associated with them. But we're not, and we are what was it?
Family.
Yeah, they're family. Yeah, definitely. You know what I'm saying? But we're not part of their actual group, so to speak. but we definitely are, we caucus with them. That's
intellectual.
we
caucus with them.
Yeah, we caucus with them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So anyway, so in the book, Ross, so in the movie, Ross, so I'm sorry, the show. So his father and the boy's father and him, I guess they were working as like barbers or something like that. They were working for this white man, and he shows up, and John Brown shows up, and really he's kind of like scouting. You know what I'm saying? And they get to talking or whatever. And the guy, I mean, the guy's pro. I want to say it was Missouri because it seemed like it was free staters versus the non-slave. You know what I'm saying? It was like that's the vibe I got. Like it was those who were free and those who weren't free. Those whites that were.
I think
free.
it was Kansas. Because I know they kind of were like the
Kansas,
tipping point for it. Kansas and Missouri was like the tipping point.
Right,
like
exactly.
Civil War area. Yeah.
Right. It was like one of that. So, anyways, make a long story short, John Brown ends up getting into it with the white dude. He ends up killing somebody, and the father ended up the boy's father ends up getting shot in the process. So he just, for some reason, John Brown, because they're making John Brown is crazy, right? He doesn't recognize that this is a boy. He thinks it's a girl, and he starts dressing her up as a girl, and the boy doesn't just say anything. He just rides with it. So the whole damn series, he's wearing girl clothes, and you know what I'm saying? It was like, this is completely fucking unnecessary to the story. Why are we doing this?
This is a completely fictional individual.
Fictional individual, everything. You know what I mean? They made John Brown, look more stupid than it. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't realize this was a boy the whole time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's weird.
Unnecessary.
Like he was just, fanatical and crazy.
That's weird.
You had to be. Hey, look, you had to be crazy in the 1800s to want to give black people justice.
Yeah, that's basically it.
It has to be intersectional story. I'm gonna say this because you guys are men. But even in the film, The Harder They Fall, at the end, they had the woman that was the secured bodyguard, whatever. They had this weird angle, and they showed her kissing Stagecoach Mary because she always wanted to be a deputy. Come on. It's like, it's always some kind of something in there. I mean, I'm telling you, this was a potpourri parade of pandering. Everybody got a little bit of something in the film, and it was an international way of doing it. It's like, I think the reason why you can look on your Facebook timelines. I can't, but I mean, everybody I see in there is like, oh, this movie was great. This was awesome. We need to have more movies like this. And I'm like, the only reason I've been pushing back is because I don't want more movies like this. I really want more movies that are really these characters' narratives. Like, people don't look at documentaries as much, but yeah, I mean, put a documentary, do some narrative like of their lives. I want to see, somebody said abolitionist Quakers. Okay. Yeah. I want to see some movies of the cowboys and our freedmen people. I want to see more films of that in their true life stories. And
here's something we could do: a fictional what if Reconstruction worked.
Right. I'll see it. Hey, I'll check it out.
Right.
Hey, have you ever heard of it's a mockumentary called The Confederate States of America? And this guy, he's black, he made the movie like if the Confederates would have won. It's funny. It's real funny. But it's called The Confederate States of America.
I mean, we can do all kinds of fictional what ifs. We can do that. But don't use our ancestors' names and likenesses and then just totally lambaste.
Bogus what if. Yeah, bogus what if. Yeah. Yeah. Like the Harriet story was a bogus what if. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. What if the black slave
trying
to catch? I didn't see it either. Yeah, I ain't catch it. I just see.
I saw it. I was pissed. Like I'm pissed about this movie. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I can't critique it without. I have to see it. I can't tell people why it's wrong. Yeah. Just based off of what I know. I mean, mind you, I waited till I saw it for free. I didn't pay for it. You know what I'm saying? But either way, I had to see it in order to be able to criticize it. Same thing with that freaking Self-Made. You know what I mean? By that CJ Madam Walker movie. They did exactly the same old crap. Introduced, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, a gender war antagonism. You know what I mean? All the males in there weren't good for nothing. They were, you know what I'm saying? They were basically holding the black women, and then they did colorism as well. They had this, fight between, the woman that man, I forgot her name, but she was in fact in the reality. So they had this light skin, black skin thing going on, right? And it was completely false. In fact, in reality, CJ Madam Walker actually had worked for this lady. So in the movie, in the Self-Made movie, CJ Madam Walker had wanted to, it was like she wanted to be part of, this beauty chain that this lady had, right? Who actually was supposed to be, man, I got to look her up. I hate talking in generalities. But she actually was probably a millionaire, and she was the first to do it. In fact, CJ Madam Walker actually got a lot of her inspiration and business acumen from being an agent for this lady's company or what have you. She's a light skin. She was a light skinned lady or whatever. But in the movie they made it out to be like, because CJ Madam Walker is darker and overweight, she wasn't pretty enough. She rejected her from being able to sell her products. So then kind of like as a revenge, she's going. CJ Madam Walker like stole her ingredients or whatever to her relaxer or what have you, and she made.
What's crazy to me?
And it was like completely false. Like that didn't happen at all. The lady hired the lady. You know what I'm saying?
Like about that whole narrative,
right?
It's not even considered. I mean, in certain circles, but in most circles, it's not even considered important, beautiful. Some people in a lot of circles the relaxers, the live relaxers sales have gone down significantly because more and more of us sisters are wearing our hair natural. I've been having my hair natural for about 20 years now, but more sisters are starting to just wear their hair natural, learning how to do our own hair care. And this thing here about putting that line in your hair and stuff we have to do to cut to have a certain so-called beauty standard is just a really sad. It's a sad narrative in and of itself. Like in order for you to be considered attractive, you have to have a certain kind of curl in your hair, or you have to have a certain lighter than a number 5 paper bag, and it's an embarrassing narrative. And it's a narrative that, we should need to try and change, because I've seen a billionaire woman, I think she's from Nigeria, and she's a billionaire, and she has her hair relaxed. She has skin lightener, and you're a billionaire. I mean, if I was extremely dark skinned and my hair was kinky curly, and I'm a billionaire, I would be the standard. Do you understand what I'm saying? With billions of dollars. And it's
got self-hate.
Self-hate has this woman walking around. She's a Nigerian woman. I forgot where she made her money. I can look that up, but it's like
probably cake soap.
Yeah, she's got cake soap skin, and you could tell her skin is not that light. And you're Nigerian, and she has this relaxer sitting in her hair, and it just looks so weird and odd. I mean, it's like now also that for them to do that film, the Madam C.J. Walker film, year or two ago, whatever, I forget.
Right. It was last year. I want to say it was 2020.
Yeah, I mean, but for them to do a film on her at that point in time, and it's just kind of I don't know. I feel a couple kind of different ways about. I mean, this is our beauty standards is getting our hair straightened, and this is what we put. This woman became multimillionaire because of our lack of self-esteem.
Yeah, and then crazy in the movie, she was eventually she was living in the same neighborhood as the Rockefellers, and supposedly, she was, having conversations with them like her neighbor, I'm just like, but So the white man was
Like
like,
racism
okay,
don't never exist in none of these
don't
movies.
ever exist. The only thing that exists is a nigga beating ass. You know what I'm saying?
Misogynoir. It's misogynoir.
The only thing that exists in these movies is a
Misogynoir.
nigga putting foot to ass.
Right. That's the reason why we got to kind of try to challenge these narratives and be critical when we have these type of shows. You know, because if we don't push, go ahead,
I would
Ross.
love to be able to find some of us that are able to actually put together our own films and projects and things of that nature and be able to tell our own stories.
That's why we need
Because right now they're overlooking us and going overseas and pulling directors and everything from the UK. No disrespect to them, but it's like I don't want somebody from England telling my story and my ancestor stories because you're gonna mess it up. I can't come in your house and tell what your story is of your household. That's for you to do.
So to give an example, hold on, Stephen. To give an example, right? They just had a 5-part miniseries on Amazon Prime dealing about stuff that was going on in the UK in the 70s, 80s, and so on and so forth, right? You know what I mean? And it was all done by it was a British cast. I don't think there was any Americans in it at all. It was, what I'm saying, it was all British or what have you. British, author, the whole nine, man. It was a 5-part, anthology series. You know what I'm saying? It was very interesting and very, informative, and it was really good. But they stayed true to what was going on in the UK. These people were coming from the Caribbean, coming to the UK because, hey, they part of the Commonwealth, right? They part of the Great Britain. You know what I'm saying? And all the issues that they were facing, racism, things of that nature, violence from the cops, blah blah blah. But they kept the music. You know what I'm saying? They do house parties. It was their music. There was a whole, I learned about a whole new, it was new to me, but there's a reggae, a love reggae, slow reggae song. I forgot. It's a genre that they call. I got to look it up. But anyways,
like
make a long story short. Huh?
Like dub reggae?
Yeah, it's a version of it. It was popular in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah, I'll look it up, man. But anyways, they stayed true to that, that era. There was obviously it was a time period. You know what I mean? And the actors were British, actors or Caribbean actors. You know what I'm saying? And it was because old boy from who plays in Star Wars. The black dude, the latest one, man. It's crazy.
I know who you're talking about.
I always forget everybody's names. Huh?
What's his name? John
Boyega.
Yeah, him. He played in it.
He played the cop in the Detroit movie.
Yeah,
they make him the black person in everything.
Yeah. For a little minute.
But this is my thing too. It's like now, how would that have looked if you had somebody as prestigious as Spike Lee going over directing that? It just wouldn't have given it the same kind of flavor. It would have been like off. They would have been upset. Like, how could you get an American guy to come over and do our story? It would have been insulting.
But you know what? I mean, Spike Lee would have done research. I mean, he probably would have done a good job. Like, British people have a weird love of Westerns anyway. Because like I remember my wife was in when she was in college, she studied abroad in Australia. And they really think like all Americans say howdy. Like they think we all say that. They think that's what we say. They think everybody got a Southern accent and that we all just pretend like for TV not to talk like that.
So it's called Lovers Rock. Lovers Rock. That's the name of the genre of reggae music that was popularized in the 70s and the 80s in the UK. And they used to have a lot of house parties and stuff. And even there was a couple episodes dealt with that. They dealt. John Boyega played a young cop. His parents wanted him, he wanted him to, go like in a medical school or something like that. But for whatever reason, he wanted to join the police force or what have you. And he had a hard ass time, because obviously they wasn't hearing that, you know what I mean? But he joined, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, it was I was like, damn, they was dealing with this shit like in the 80s. it was like, damn, like it was like the 70s and 80s. They was dealing with that type of racism we were dealing with in the 50s and 60s. I was just like,
so,
wow. But anyway,
let's try to wind down. But to Roz's point though, like she said, they wouldn't want like somebody that's from America who has lack of exposure to the history just to portray what they think happened in that time. And that's
right.
what we're seeing right now with all of our iconic figures, with all of our iconic moments in history. Is we're saying we want it to be fantasized the right way if you're going to make it fake, and if you're going to do it the right way, at least tell the true story. And so,
imagine us having a scene in that, and dealing with that time in the early 80s, UK, where they having all these house parties because the blacks couldn't go to the clubs, the white clubs. They weren't allowed to go to the black clubs, so they were having house parties. Imagine, hey, we making Detroit house techno, or Chicago house music.
Or from DC.
So like
or go-go. You know what I'm saying? Come on, dude.
Yeah, so that's a part of the problem. But we're always, us who have that critical mindset to think about what we actually watching and digesting. I think as we start pushing back on this, hopefully they'll give us something where we'll say, you know what, this is a good film, this is a good portrayal, because right now we're going down the rabbit hole, and I think in the next 10 years, people who praise these type of directors, who praise these type of cast and these actors, those are people who are going to get the shots. Those are people who are going to get the chance because they think they're the ones generating the revenue dollars for our community, and that's the issue.
Or we make it ourselves. I mean, even if it's something that's more of a documentary type. I mean, I know narratives and period pieces cost a lot of money, and that's the problem that we have. It's very expensive to make a period piece film. I mean, you got to pay for everything, the costuming, the set design, the sets, the location, and individually, most independent films don't have the funding for it, but people just love hearing maybe a British accent or something, and they say, hey, they're linked together because the guy that directed it, he did a short film that's on YouTube or something. He did like a little short Western film, and it was a bunch of like Michael K. Williams was in there. Several other actors were in that short film. And I guess he used that as a way to showcase what he could do for The Harder They Fall. But we need to start making our own. We need to start making our own films. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's some kind of way for us to be able to do it. It would be kind of dope if we could. We know people want to see Westerns, or people want to see revenge films or blaxploitation or whatever they want to see, but let's start getting that together in our heads and deciding that we're going to make that
that should be part of our reparations talk. So we all are reparationists here, in case any of you all didn't know. We talk about it to bring it back full circle, right? That we need to have in the when we have some sort of Federal Bureau of Freedmen again. That's what we call it for. Is we need to have part of our reparationist policies is funding for arts and and development, right? Music, art. Because for so long we've been prevented from being able to access and produce our own and control our own narratives and music. You know what I mean? That should be part of the reparationist package, like some sort of department within the Federal Bureau of Freedmen, you know what I mean? That, that will look to either institute, create, or dole out grants for, independence or black-owned movie studio houses, so on and so forth, to be able to do the films that we really need to be able to do. Because unfortunately, Roz, as we very well know, the reason why isn't because we don't have the money. And why we don't have the money is because all the disadvantage and so on and so forth, right? Everything comes back to reparations. Damn near every black problem you could think of, or problem that deals with freedmen, it always comes back down to our slavery and our and the lockout that our ancestors and our people have had, from that up until now, right? So it's all economic. So I think that's something that we really should promote as part of our reparations. Our reparations movement is saying why we need reparations, right? What things that we can get that could make our situation better. It's not all just about a check. It's policies and so on and so forth. So I'll just leave with that.
So you want to do well, I just want everybody I didn't go through the whole list of the cast. It was a lot, and I mean, the show as long as it is today. But I would encourage everybody to go to the YouTube, type in The Harder They Fall, scroll down to the cast list, go through every individual that they have hyperlinked. Look who they were. Look at their stories. Look who Bass Reeves was. Look who Cherokee Bill was. Look who these people were. Look at their stories. Look at what they had to overcome, and look at how they were portrayed. This is all of our, descendants of freedmen. This is our history here. I mean, imagine if when Steven Spielberg made Schindler's List, if he had, taken and made a mockery of the people in the movie, if he didn't give a deference and gravity and respect to the source material and the tragedy that these people were going to either encounter or that they had dealt with. This is what we have to understand. It's not enough for us to have jobs. It's not enough for us to be in movies. If they're not going to do movies that adequately display positive Black imagery, at least accurately display positive Black imagery, because that's really what we're talking about with this. You're not even accurately displaying the lives of people who were, majority of them, former slaves, a lot of them veterans of the Civil War or some other type of military service, who went on to lead successful lives as free men and women in a country that they had up to that point worked in for free. That's the story. That's the story. That's the story we should all be talking about. All these individuals overcame insurmountable odds to be free and live a life where they died of natural causes at an old age. Now, the Native American Cherokee Bill and Rufus, they died when they was in their 20s. But I'm talking about, by law, they was criminals. But I'm talking about the Black people who we had to see as outlaws. They died of old age after living under horrible conditions as slaves. We have to understand that and hold those people up. We got to tell our own stories, like Roz was saying. We have to hold people accountable. Jay-Z is a poison. He's a poison on the Black community. This is no different. This kind of stuff he's putting out now is no different than when he rap about how he used to sell drugs. It's no different. It's a different poison. It's poison. One poison you one way, this poisons you a different way. But he's a cancer on the Black community. He's a cancer. He needs to be done away with. The sooner we can figure out how to tune out from Jay-Z, from his music, from his influence, from talking to him, from listening to him, the sooner we can get people from wanting to say they'll take a meal with him instead of $50,000, we'll be better off as a community. That'll be my part.
Last one left there. Ernest.
Oh yeah, I already gave my piece. I think everybody hit the hammer on the head. I would definitely want to encourage our audience to make sure they hit that like button, subscribe, and definitely comment if you want your opinion to be heard. We, like Stedman said, we have a show every other Tuesday, so our next show will be coming up next Tuesday. So feel free to tap in with us then. But like always, it's peace, love, and reparations.
Peace, love, and reparations.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity.
Peace and reparations.
Oh yeah, thank you, Ross, for coming through.
Thanks.
Thanks.